2012 and 2013, it was a huge year for art and fashion, and particular for Damien Hirst in fashion. In 2012, he adorned 12 backpacks for the row with multicoloured dots and prescription pills, and in 2013, he decorated Prada bags with bugs. However, by November 2013, Alexander McQueen introduced Hirst's newest capsule, a collection of limited edition scarves to celebrate the brand's 10-year anniversary of their very famous skull scarf. Launching 30 different designs, Hirst noted it was something that should have been done a long time before then. Of course, he was collaborating with who was then at the helm of McQueen, Sarah Burton, and each print was inspired by Hirst's entomology paintings, which included bugs, spiders, butterflies, and other insects in these kaleidoscopic geometric patterns, and including, of course, the iconic skull of McQueen. What's very obvious is a very mutual love of symmetrical design, coupled with a penchant for the much darker side of nature. They were available in chiffon, twill, pongé, and cashmere. The skull has become a signature motif of McQueen, having debuted as part of the Spring-Summer collection of 2003. 10 years on again, and the skull motif has appeared in newer collections. Let's see if any artist collaborations are also in the works. To use art in a flat way without creative intention is in bad taste. I mix it up, are the words of Gianni Versace when he spoke to Vogue in 1991 about his spring-summer collection that year. Versace merged his love for art and contemporary fashion that year, taking inspiration from none other than Andy Warhol, selecting it to execute the incredible pop collection. From ornate Baroque swirls to leopard print and harlequin diamonds, along with pop art portraits. Known from taking ordinary portraits, Coca-Cola bottles and soup cans and making them extraordinary, Andy Warhol influencing fashion was nothing new by 1991. He was a close friend to American designer Halston during the 60s and 70s and was also a very close companion to Diane von Furstenberg. If anyone remembers Halston's collaboration with Warhol in 1972 for the Coty American Fashion Critics Award, entitled On Stage Happening by Andy Warhol. In a collection that was so playful, colourful, an homage to Warhol, and of course typical of Gianni Versace, the jewel of the collection has to be Naomi Campbell wearing this a pop portrait inspired dress. Pop art in fashion then remains timeless. As Warhol's art broke the barrier between contemporary fashion and art, so too did Versace in 1991, since of course revisited in revivals ever since. Mugler's garments were very famously a mixture of oversized hats, fluorescent wigs, extra broad shoulders, aerodynamic busts, figure-hugging gowns, and dagger stilettos for the hautest of haute couture icons. As noted in the book Thierry Mugler Couteurisme, this kind of work demanded an equally extravagant image maker. Enter Helmut Newton. The exhibition and the book as well underlines just how important fashion photography was for Mugler, and it also featured several of Newton's works, including, of course, Mugler's Lingerie Revisited collection from 1998 to 1999. When Mugler met the photographer back in Paris in the 1970s, he was determined to hire him once he had enough money. This eventually happened, and on a very early shoot one morning in Mexico, tensions between Mugler and Newton actually led Mugler to branch out into photography himself. Newton actually notes that Mugler had arrived at the set before him and had taken some Polaroids. Newton notes that he had barely landed when he was already hit, with Mugler stating he wanted photos taken this way and that way. Now, he did get to work, but they did argue constantly. So eventually, Newton told Mugler, "Your Polaroids are good, all you need is an assistant to help you set up the camera." And well, Mugler took this to heart, leading to us now having these incredible images by Mugler. But the element of armouring feature heavily in Mugler's work, and it further plays out in sections with his collaboration with Helmut Newton, designers' own fembots with their peekaboo bosoms and what they refer to as derrière décolleté. Louis Vuitton has a long history of collaborating with artists. We all remember the Masters collection after their collaboration with Jeff Koons back in 2017. But most recently, in 2023, Louis Vuitton's collaboration with Japanese artist Yayoi Kusama caused a media sensation, with giant sculptures of her popping up along the Champs-Élysées. The initial collaboration was actually between her and Marc Jacobs in 2012. From pumpkins to her signature polka dots, and of course infinity rooms, Kasama's work is instantly recognisable. And when Marc Jacobs was artistic director of Louis Vuitton between 1997 and 2014, he went to visit her studio in 2006. A long-time admirer of Kasama, it would not be of course until 2012 that the two would collaborate, listing obsession and seriality as a starting point of their collaboration. This was presumably referring to the repetitive nature of the polka dots within Kasama's work, and the result, a collection of ready-to-wear accessories and handbags that were covered in Kasama's polka dots. Jacobs referred to Kasama as the eternal radical, and that he admired her unapologetic dedication to her vision. Despite Jacobs departing Louis Vuitton in 2014, they still marked the 10-year anniversary of the collaboration, with a new line of handbags debuted in June 2022, featuring of course the multicoloured dots. So the question then is asked, is it art or is it fashion? Can that even be separated? It can be argued that Elsa Schiaparelli and Salvador Dali altered the course of art and fashion when they met in the 1930s. From Schiaparelli jackets worn in Picasso paintings to working closely with artists like Man Ray and Mariette Oppenheim, she wrote in her memoirs that working with artists was exalting. Thanks to Elsa's associate Bettina Bergerie, Dali and Schiaparelli met, and the two shared an unlimited imagination for transcending and reinventing everyday life. From 1935 to 1939, Schiaparelli invited Dali to create a number of provocative images in the form of clothing and accessories for her couture collections. Their first collaboration was for the winter 1936-37 and a shoe hat that crossed the artist's fetishist obsessions with the designer's sense of fantasy. By 1937, you had the now famous lobster dress, which lent erotic tension to an otherwise innocent summer silhouette. By 1938, there was also the skeleton robe with visible bones, that of course echoed the fantasies created by Dali. They recognised each other's genius, and it was also a mutually beneficial arrangement. Dali gained entry into the world of Parisian high society, while Schiaparelli earned an art world pedigree that other designers, such as her rival Coco Chanel, desperately coveted. To be a surrealist was to revel in contradiction, and both Dali and Schiaparelli's work reflected and rejected the terrors of their world, changing the relationship between art and fashion forever. In 1965, Yves Saint Laurent paid tribute to Piet Mondrian by designing cocktail dresses that evoked the painter's abstract canvases. Simple cuts, geometric lines and bold colours gave the designer success. Remaining grounded in the haute couture tradition, Yves Saint Laurent was only a fledgling at the time, competing with other designers emerging like André Courrèges, who were looking at changing the female silhouette. Saint Laurent even notes that he was inspired by Courrèges, pulling him away from the traditional form of elegance and into something much more modern. Enter then, of course, being inspired by modern art. Mondrian himself would change his painting when he arrived in Paris in 1912, but essentially he was always studying colour, focusing on primary colours like red, blue and yellow, and non-colours as he called it, greys and black. And this inspired a young Saint Laurent in 1965 with clear and simple silhouettes. The 106-piece collection, still very much respected classic haute couture, with 26 designs echoing the painter's work. Saint Laurent was effectively laying the foundations for a refined aesthetic, focused on simple cuts and geometric lines. This decision was explained by his desire to create dresses composed of colours and not simply lines. To him, modern fashion had to move, had to stop being stiff, and these dresses would subsequently alter the connection between art and fashion. In quite recent fashion history, back in 2015, Irish designer Simone Rocha referenced Louise Bourgeois, the French-American artist known for her large-scale sculpture and installation art, in her work. She explored a variety of themes over the course of her long career, including domesticity and the family, the body, as well as the unconscious, and these themes connect to events from her childhood, which she considered to be a therapeutic process. But Bourgeois' influence can be seen in Rocha's work. The first time being Autumn Winter in 2015, where she had a collection inspired by Bourgeois' Lullaby series from 2006. Bourgeois had drawn and printed these bulbous shapes onto music paper, which Rocha had translated into padded pieces that distorted the body when worn. And you can even see pieces by Bourgeois in Simone Rocha's New York store. You can see it on the wall there at the back. Rocha has previously noted that the very first time she saw Bourgeois' work was actually the Irish Museum of Modern Art when she was a teenager, and that she was ultimately blown away by her suspended tapestry pieces and how she combined textiles with sculpture. In 2023, into 2024, an exhibition of her work with Simone Rocha and the choreographer Anna Teresa de Keersmaker was entitled Echo Wrapped in Memory. It reflected on the intimate connection between clothing and memory, about the memories of infancy, childhood and motherhood, aging and nostalgia, handmaking and repair, and both the physical and emotional memories of clothing. When Alexander McQueen's work was put back on display in 2018 alongside works of art after Savage Beauty back in 2011, it saw pieces from his autumn-winter collection in 1996, Dante. My favourite Met Gala exhibition ever, Heavenly Bodies and the Catholic Imagination, took McQueen's work and placed it alongside Gothic altarpieces and reliquary shrines in its exhibition spaces. A meditation on the sartorial use of religious iconography and symbolism. Religion was a fascination for McQueen, but no collection dealt with it better than Dante in Autumn-Winter of 1996, which was staged in Christchurch, Spitalfields in March of that year. The show would take McQueen to Givenchy later that year, and by 1999 he was also collaborating with the likes of Sean Lean. At the Met, a breastplate designed by Lean and McQueen was placed alongside a reliquary shrine of St. Valentine from the 14th century. Formally and conceptually, the breastplate evoked medieval reliquaries, specifically those in the form of body parts. A rigid and silver-plated exoskeleton mimicking the body part it's designed to contain, but in this case designed to hold something living. The duality then is also seen in the likes of the headdress with red beads in order to mimic droplets of blood. And as someone who started out as an art historian back in the day studying body part reliquary shrines, finishing up with McQueen was a fitting end to this series.